Rosie Duffield has always been a bit of an outlier in the Labour Party, so she knows as much as anyone that there's not a lot of chance of promotion in the Keir Starmer administration, especially considering her gender critical views. So it's hardly surprising that she's the first to make a high-profile fuss about leaving the Labour Party. It's reported here in the Telegraph, but it's all over the papers. And when she left, she wrote a letter. More of that in a minute. As for Duffield, we can hope that others will follow her example, although I doubt it, all that gravy and Christmas coming up. You have to think about such things. Anyway, there's lots of comment about the letter in the other newspapers as well, but it's not all that easy to find the whole thing. That's a bit of a problem. And, there are one or two paragraphs, but not the entire letter. And indeed, when I was going to read the whole thing and I realised it's far too long for me to read out, it would get a little tedious. So I myself am going to cut out selected bits, but not as much as you'll find cut out in the newspapers. And I'm going to leave a link in the description to the whole thing if you want to see that. Right, I'm Granniopteryx. I'm on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Minds. So, before we start, if you don't know Rosie Duffield, she is no angel and no stranger to the idea that the rules don't apply to the governing classes. For instance, a few years ago, like 2020, she was forced to resign her position as one of the Labour whips because she had been caught in flagrante with her boyfriend during lockdown. Well, I'd be tempted too, I suppose. But it wasn't right. In a statement, Ms Duffield said, "My partner and I have been attempting to navigate a difficult personal situation as responsibly as possible. I apologise that during that process we breached the guidelines. A relationship breakdown is difficult at the best of times, let alone during a pandemic." The fact is, all of this is all very, heartfelt and all the rest of it. But the point is, she was one of the people making the laws. And she broke them. So she isn't absolutely Simon Pure here, is she? However, she did dig her heels in about the Scottish idea of having men self-ID, having rapists self-ID. And the Labour Party gave her a very hard time of that, to the extent that Wes Streeting apologised to her a couple of years later about her position in 2023, when it became obvious that the next government was going to be Labour, and a lot of people were with Rosie Duffield on her ideas. So, again, we don't know how genuine that apology was. Right, so let's just look at the article sparked by Rosie Duffield's resignation from the Labour whip. This is a chart. If you're listening rather than looking, I'm going to try a quick description. We have here a chart of the goodies that Tony Blair got, that Ed Miliband got, that Jeremy Corbyn got, and that Keir Starmer got. Donations by Wahid Ali. So they were below 50k for Tony Blair. They were about somewhere below 150k for Ed Miliband. They were below 50k for Jeremy Corbyn, and on Keir Starmer's bit of the chart, it's over 300k. These are just donations by Wahid Ali. Of course, he isn't the only party donor, and we don't know about those. In her resignation letter to the Prime Minister, Miss Duffield said, "Someone with far above average wealth choosing to keep the Conservatives' two-child limit to benefit payments which entrenches children in poverty while inexplicably accepting expensive personal gifts of designer suits and glasses costing more than most of these people can grasp, this is entirely undeserving of holding the title of Labour Prime Minister. So now I think it's probably time for me to read Rosie Duffield's letter. So this is the whole letter. The greyed out bits I'm not going to read, simply to keep this video within reasonable time limits. I can no longer stay a Labour MP under your management of the party. You repeat often that you will make tough decisions and that the country is all in this together. But those decisions do not directly affect any one of us in Parliament. They are cruel and unnecessary and affect hundreds of thousands of our poorest, most vulnerable constituents. This is not what I was elected to do. In this section, she talks about the fact that Starmer was his rise through the Labour Party was meteoric, and he didn't spend time as a backbench MP. In other words, that he's inexperienced. And also she mentions the fact that he stayed very quiet about the anti-Semitism issue when he was supposed to be following Corbyn. Since you took office as leader of the opposition, you have used various heavy-handed management tactics, but have never shown what most experienced backbenchers would recognise as true or inspiring leadership. Amen to that, lady. You have never regularly engaged with your own backbench MPs, many of whom have been in Parliament far longer than you, and some of whom served in the previous Labour government. You have chosen neither to seek our individual political opinions, nor learn about our constituency experiences, nor our specific or collective areas of political knowledge. We clearly have nothing you deem to be of value. And that, we have seen how Starmer has gathered around himself a sort of clique of like-minded people, and they form this sort of bubble. The backbenchers are important only in as much as they form a stonking majority which can be used to pass laws that this clique have decided on. Your promotion of those with no proven political skills and no previous parliamentary experience, but who happen to be related to those close to you or even each other, is frankly embarrassing. And I am put in mind, although this isn't quite the same thing, of that incredible interview on television where Ed Bales, a television interviewer and ex-politician, interviewed Yvette Cooper, a member of the cabinet, and his wife as well, lobbing her softball questions and getting the softball questions that were calculated to elicit the answers she gave. And that isn't the same as this idea of people being appointed who are related to those close to Keir Starmer. But it was symptomatic of an attitude of mind which the Cooper family also picked up on. Since the change of government in July, the revelations of hypocrisy have been staggering and increasingly outrageous. I cannot put into words how angry I and my colleagues are at your total lack of understanding about how you have made us all appear. Yeah, and any backbencher now is bolstering this sort of, it's corruption, isn't it? How dare you take our longed-for victory, the electorate's sacred and precious trust, and throw it back in their individual faces and the faces of dedicated and hard-working Labour MPs. The sleaze, nepotism and apparent avarice are off the scale. I am so ashamed of what you and your inner circle have done to tarnish and humiliate our once proud party. forcing a vote to make many older people iller and colder, while you and your favourite colleagues enjoy free family trips to events most people would have to save hard for. Why are you not showing even the slightest bit of embarrassment or remorse? I now have no confidence in your commitment to deliver the so-called change you promised. Oh, but there is change. It's a change in the direction of the sort of corruption and nepotism you find in banana republics. As bad as the Conservative Party were, and they richly deserved to lose, the Labour Party have taken British politics into an entirely new, tyrannical and corrupt area. My constituents elected an independent-minded MP who vowed to put constituency before party and to keep tackling the issues that most affect us here. I am confident that I can continue to do so as an independent MP, guided by my core Labour values. And here she goes through local problems, and it's quite obvious that she is actually pitching herself for the next election. I'm not blaming her, and she's definitely not wrong in what she says. I'm just pointing this out as a sort of side issue. As someone who joined a trade union in my first job at 17, Labour has always been my natural political home. I was elected as a single mum, a former teaching assistant, in receipt of tax credits. The Labour Party, that means she was on very low income. The Labour Party was formed to speak to those of us without a voice, and I stood for election partly because I saw decisions about the lives of those like me being made in Westminster by only the most privileged few. Right now, I cannot look my constituents in the eye and tell them that anything has changed. I hope to be able to return to the party in the future when it again resembles the party I love, putting the needs of the many before the greed of the few. Okay, well, yeah, I am reminded of the final lines of Animal Farm, of course, about there not being much difference between the pigs and the humans. Okay, well, good for you, Rosie Duffield, although I suspect at least some of it is to do with your political ambitions. I don't mind. You've got the right thing here. And, yep, that's Rosie Duffield's letter. With any luck, there will be a movement of the real Labour Party, and some of those backbenchers might actually follow her. You never know. We might get an opposition after all. Well, that would be a change, wouldn't it? Till next time. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.